It's 2:47 a.m. when the sound of the door slamming jolts me awake. The abruptness of it sends a rush of adrenaline through my veins, yanking me from the grips of a deep, dreamless sleep. My heart pounds in my chest as I sit up, the darkness of the bedroom wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. The clock's red digits glare at me accusingly, as if to say, "You should have known." I rub my eyes, trying to make sense of the situation. The room is still, the silence almost oppressive. But something is off. I glance to my left and feel my blood run cold. Jessica's side of the bed is empty, the sheets pulled back haphazardly. I blink, my mind racing. Where could she have gone at this hour? Panic begins to creep in, but I force myself to stay calm. I slip out of bed, my bare feet making no sound on the cold wooden floor. The hallway light is on, casting a long, eerie shadow. I tread quietly, every creak of the floorboard sounding like a gunshot in the stillness of the night. I reach the front door, my heart stopping as I see it slightly ajar, the night air seeping in through the crack. Without thinking, I step outside, the chill of the night biting at my skin. I look around, my eyes scanning the empty street. And then I see her. Jessica, walking briskly down the sidewalk, her figure illuminated by the soft glow of the streetlights. She's dressed in the same clothes she wore to bed, her hair wild and unkempt. My stomach knots with a mixture of fear and curiosity. I follow her, keeping my distance, my footsteps muffled by the damp pavement. She turns a corner, and I quicken my pace, desperate not to lose sight of her. The streets are deserted, the only sound the distant hum of the city that never truly sleeps. She stops in front of an apartment building, its facade old and weathered. My breath catches in my throat as a man steps out of the shadows, his face obscured by a hood. He greets her with a smile, and they embrace, his hands roaming over her body with a familiarity that makes my stomach churn. They exchange hushed words, and she laughs, a sound that cuts through me like a knife. They enter the building together, and I follow, my heart pounding so loudly I fear it might give me away. The door closes behind them, and I press myself against the wall, my mind racing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Jessica, my wife, the woman I thought I knew, is cheating on me. The realization hits me like a freight train, and I feel a surge of anger and betrayal. I wait for a moment, my breath coming in shallow gasps, before I quietly push the door open and slip inside. The hallway is dimly lit, and I move silently, my senses heightened. I can hear their voices, muffled but unmistakable, coming from an apartment at the end of the hall. I creep closer, my heart pounding in my ears. Through the gap in the door, I can see them. They're in the living room, their clothes discarded carelessly on the floor. My stomach turns as I watch them, their bodies entwined in a dance of lust and betrayal. I feel a hot, burning rage rise within me, but I force myself to stay quiet. This isn't the time for confrontation. Not yet. I step back, retreating to the shadows of the hallway. My mind is racing, 1,000 thoughts swirling in my head. How long has this been going on? Why didn't I see the signs? And most importantly, what am I going to do about it? I return home, my hands trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty space where Jessica should be. The room feels colder, emptier. My mind is made up. I can't let this go. I need to take action, to make her pay for what she's done. As the first light of dawn begins to seep through the curtains, I lay out my plan. I'll gather evidence, bide my time, and then, when the moment is right, I'll reveal their secret to everyone. I'll destroy their lives the way they've destroyed mine. They won't see it coming. I close my eyes, exhaustion finally overtaking me. But even in sleep, my mind is restless, consumed by thoughts of revenge. This is just the beginning. Jessica and her lover have no idea what's coming for them. And when the time comes, I'll be ready. Morning arrives, bringing with it a dull, persistent ache in my chest. I drag myself out of bed, my mind replaying the events of the night before. Jessica is already in the kitchen, humming a tune as she makes breakfast. The normalcy of the scene feels like a cruel joke. "Morning, babe," she says, flashing me a bright smile. "I made your favorite, pancakes with blueberries." I force a smile, the taste of betrayal still bitter in my mouth. "Thanks, Jess." Didn't sleep well, though. Weird dreams. "Oh? What about?" she asks, pouring coffee into my mug. The smell is usually comforting, but today it feels like a mockery of our life together. Just weird stuff. Couldn't really make sense of it, I lie, watching her closely. Her eyes don't betray a hint of guilt. She's good at this. The doorbell rings, breaking the tension. I excuse myself and answer it. It's Mark, my best friend since college. His presence is a welcome distraction. "Hey, man. Thought I'd drop by and see if you're up for a run," he says, clapping me on the shoulder. "Yeah, sure. Give me a minute," I reply, grateful for the escape. As I change into my running gear, I hear Jessica and Mark chatting in the kitchen. Their laughter feels like salt in a wound. I take a deep breath and join them. "Ready?" Mark asks, giving me a curious look. He can sense something is off. "Yeah, let's go," I say, trying to sound normal. We head out, the cool morning air refreshing against my skin. We run in silence for a while, the rhythmic pounding of our feet on the pavement the only sound. Finally, Mark breaks the silence. "All right, spill." "What's going on?" he asks, his tone serious. I glance around, making sure we're alone. It's Jessica. She's cheating on me. Mark stops in his tracks, staring at me. "What? Are you sure?" "I followed her last night. Saw her with some guy. They went to his place," I say, my voice raw with emotion. "Jesus, man." "I'm so sorry," Mark says, his eyes filled with sympathy. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get proof. I want to make sure she can't deny it. Then I'll expose them both," I say, my resolve hardening. Mark nods. "Whatever you need, I'm here for you. Let's nail those bastards." The rest of our run is spent strategizing. By the time we get back, I have a plan. We'll use Mark's tech skills to set up surveillance and gather evidence. It feels good to have a clear goal, something to focus on other than the pain. Later that day, Mark comes over with a small bag of gadgets. Jessica is out, and we work quickly to set up hidden cameras in the house. We place one in the living room, another in the bedroom, and a third in the kitchen. I feel a pang of guilt invading her privacy like this, but the memory of her with that man steals my resolve. "I'll monitor the feeds from my place," Mark says, packing up. "You just act normal and keep me posted." "Thanks, Mark." "I owe you," I say, clasping his hand. "You do the same for me." "We'll get through this," he assures me. Days pass, each one a test of my patience. Jessica continues her routine as if nothing is wrong, her behavior impeccable. I begin to doubt myself, wondering if maybe it was a one-time thing. But then, late one night, Mark calls. "Dude, you need to see this," he says, his voice urgent. I rush to his place, my heart in my throat. Mark pulls up the feed from the living room camera. There, on the screen, is Jessica, laughing and flirting with the same man from before. They're too close, their touch is too intimate. "Who the hell is he?" I ask, my voice shaking with rage. "Looks like his name is David." I did some digging. "He works at her office," Mark says, his expression grim. I feel a cold, hard fury settle over me. I need to see more. We need more evidence. Over the next few days, we gather more footage. Jessica and David meeting in secret, their interactions increasingly bold. Each new piece of evidence feels like a knife to the heart, but it also fuels my determination. Finally, we have enough. I sit down with Mark, reviewing everything. The pictures, the videos, the texts we managed to intercept. It's all there, undeniable proof of her betrayal. I'm going to confront her, I say, my voice steady. And then I'm going to expose them. Everyone will know what they've done. Mark nods. Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything rash. I won't, I promise, though I'm not sure I believe it myself. That evening, I wait for Jessica to come home. The weight of what I'm about to do presses down on me, but I know it's the right thing. She walks in, smiling, oblivious to the storm that's about to hit. Hey, how was your day? She asks, hanging up her coat. I take a deep breath. We need to talk. Her smile falters, and she looks at me, confused. What's wrong? I know about David, I say, my voice low and cold. David, I say, face goes pale, and she takes a step back. What are you talking about? I have proof, Jessica. I've seen everything. The late-night meetings, the texts, everything, I say, struggling to keep my voice steady. She opens her mouth to speak, but no words come out. Tears well up in her eyes, and she shakes her head. I'm so sorry, she whispers. Sorry isn't good enough, I snap, the anger I've been holding back finally spilling over. You betrayed me. You lied to me. I didn't mean for it to happen, she says, her voice trembling. It just happened. Well, now everyone's going to know, I say, pulling out my phone. I'm going to make sure of it. Her eyes widen in horror. Please, don't. Think about what this will do to us, to our lives. I hesitate, the weight of her words sinking in. But then I remember the pain, the betrayal. You should have thought about that before, I say, my resolve hardening. As I walk out of the house, I feel a sense of grim satisfaction. The first step is done. Now, it's time to make them pay. The morning sun casts long shadows across the neighborhood as I drive to Mark's place. My hands grip the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white. The confrontation with Jessica left me raw, but now it's time to put the next phase of my plan into action. Mark is waiting for me outside his apartment, a grim look on his face. Hey, he says as I step out of the car. How did it go? About as well as you'd expect, I reply, my voice tinged with bitterness. She tried to apologize, but I didn't let her get away with it. Now, it's time to expose them. Mark nods, understanding the gravity of the situation. All right. Let's get started. We head inside, and Mark pulls up the footage on his computer. We've compiled a comprehensive collection of incriminating evidence, videos, texts, and photos, all neatly organized. My heart aches as I see Jessica's face on the screen, but I push the pain aside. This isn't about emotions anymore, it's about justice. I've put together a presentation, Mark says, clicking through the slides. We'll start with the texts, then move on to the videos. By the time we're done, no one will have any doubts about what's been going on. Good, I say, my voice hard. Let's get this ready to send out. We spend the next few hours fine-tuning everything, making sure every detail is perfect. The plan is to send the evidence to key people in Jessica's life, her family, friends, and colleagues. They need to know the truth. As we work, Mark glances at me. You sure you want to do this? Once it's out there, there's no going back. I'm sure, I reply, though my heart is heavy. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. Mark nods and presses the final button, setting the wheels in motion. We sit in silence for a moment, the weight of what we've done settling over us. There's no turning back now. Later that evening, I return home, the house eerily quiet. Jessica is sitting on the couch, her face pale and drawn. She looks up as I enter, her eyes red from crying. Did you do it? She asks, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, I say, my tone cold. Everyone knows. She breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably. How could you? You've ruined everything. You ruined everything, I snap, my anger flaring. You did this to us. You and David. She shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I never meant to hurt you. Well, you did, I say, my voice shaking with emotion. And now you're going to have to live with the consequences. I walk away, unable to bear the sight of her any longer. The house feels like a prison, the walls closing in around me. I head to the garage, needing to escape. As I drive aimlessly through the city, my mind races. The satisfaction of revenge is fleeting, replaced by a hollow emptiness. My phone buzzes with a message from Mark. It's done. Everyone's seen it. I pull over and read the responses that have flooded in. Messages of shock, disbelief, and sympathy. Jessica's family is devastated, her friends horrified. The fallout is exactly as I'd planned, but instead of feeling vindicated, I feel a crushing sense of guilt. I decide to drive to the park where I used to find solace. Sitting on a bench, I watch the sun set over the horizon. The vibrant colors bleed into the sky, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. My thoughts are interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. I look up to see David standing there, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. "We need to talk," he says, his voice tight. "What could you possibly have to say to me?" I reply, my anger simmering just below the surface. "I know you're angry," David says, sitting down next to me. "And you have every right to be. But please, think about what you're doing. This could destroy Jessica." "She destroyed me first," I say, my voice hard. "And you helped her." David runs a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. We didn't plan it. It just happened." "That doesn't make it right," I snap. "You both made choices, and now you have to live with them." He sighs, rubbing his temples. "Look, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But Jessica, she's a good person. She made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but she's not a monster." I glare at him, my anger bubbling over. "You don't get to play the victim here. You don't get to tell me how to feel." David stands, his shoulders slumping. "You're right. I don't. But just know that we never meant to hurt you." As he walks away, I feel a pang of regret. I sit there for a long time, lost in thought. The satisfaction I'd hoped to feel is overshadowed by a sense of loss. I thought revenge would make things right, but it's only made things worse. When I finally return home, Jessica is gone. Her belongings are missing, and the house feels emptier than ever. A note sits on the kitchen counter, her handwriting shaky and uneven. "I'm sorry. I'm leaving. I need time to think. Please don't try to find me. Jessica?" I collapse into a chair, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The revenge I'd sought has torn my life apart, leaving me alone in the wreckage. The anger that fueled me has burned out, leaving only a hollow ache in its place. In the silence of the empty house, I realize that revenge isn't the answer. It's a bitter lesson learned too late. The damage is done, and now I have to find a way to pick up the pieces and move forward, somehow. Weeks pass in a blur of loneliness and regret. Jessica's absence is a constant reminder of my actions, and every corner of the house feels haunted by her memory. I go through the motions of daily life, but the spark is gone. The messages from friends and family, once a flood of concern and support, have dwindled to silence. I'm alone with my thoughts, and they're relentless. One evening, Mark shows up at my door, looking more serious than I've ever seen him. "We need to talk," he says, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "What's going on?" I ask, closing the door behind him. "I've been doing some digging," he says, pulling out his laptop. "There's something you need to see." He sets the laptop on the kitchen table and opens a file. It's a video, but not one from our surveillance cameras. This footage is grainy, clearly taken from a hidden camera. The timestamp indicates it's from the night I confronted Jessica. My heart races as I watch, recognizing the inside of David's apartment. "Where did you get this?" I ask, my voice tight with anxiety. "Anonymous email," Mark replies, his eyes glued to the screen. Just watch. In the video, Jessica and David are sitting on the couch, but something is off. They're not acting like lovers, they're tense, almost fearful. I can't believe we went through with this, Jessica says, her voice shaky. It was the only way, David replies, running a hand through his hair. He had to know. We couldn't let him keep living in the dark. My stomach twists. What are they talking about? The camera angle shifts, and another figure steps into view. It's a woman, her face partially obscured by the shadows. When she speaks, her voice sends chills down my spine. You did well, the woman says. Now, we just need to wait for the right moment. Who is that? I whisper, my mind racing. Watch, Mark says, his voice tight with tension. The woman steps into the light, and my breath catches in my throat. It's my mother. She looks older, more tired, but there's no mistaking her. I haven't seen her in years, not since she left my father and disappeared. What the hell? I mutter, leaning closer to the screen. Jessica and David both look at her with a mix of fear and respect. Are you sure he'll be okay? Jessica asks, her voice trembling. He'll be fine, my mother replies. It's better this way. He needs to know the truth. The video ends, and I'm left reeling. I turn to Mark, my mind struggling to process what I've just seen. What does this mean? Why is my mother involved? Mark shakes his head, looking just as confused. I don't know, man. But there's more. The email included an address. I think it's where your mother is staying. Without hesitation, I grab my keys. We're going. Now. The drive to the address is tense, neither of us speaking. The address leads us to a rundown apartment complex on the outskirts of the city. My heart pounds in my chest as we climb the stairs, each step bringing us closer to answers I'm not sure I'm ready for. We reach the door and I hesitate, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Mark gives me a reassuring nod, and I take a deep breath, then knock. The door opens slowly, and there she is, my mother, looking both surprised and resigned. I knew this day would come, she says softly, stepping aside to let us in. The apartment is sparse, a stark contrast to the life she left behind. We sit in the small living room, the tension thick in the air. Why? I ask, my voice cracking. Why did you do this? She sighs, looking older than I remember. You deserve the truth, Eric. Your father, he wasn't who you thought he was. He was involved in some dangerous things, and when I tried to leave, he threatened to take you from me. I feel a chill run down my spine. What does that have to do with Jessica and David? I couldn't protect you on my own, she explains. I found allies, people who knew what your father was capable of. Jessica and David were part of that. We orchestrated everything to reveal the truth to you in a way that would keep you safe. Safe from what? I demand, my anger rising. From your father's associates, she says, her eyes filled with regret. They're still out there, and they're dangerous. We needed to make sure you were prepared. I stand up, my mind racing. So all of this, Jessica's betrayal, the surveillance, the exposure, it was all a lie? Not a lie, she says quietly. A necessary deception. I turn to Mark, who looks just as shocked as I feel. And you didn't know any of this? He shakes his head. Not a clue. I'm just as blindsided as you are. I take a deep breath, trying to process everything. So what now? What do I do with all this? My mother stands, placing a hand on my shoulder. Now, you rebuild. You're free from the shadows of the past. It's time to start over. I nod slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. The anger and betrayal still burn inside me, but now there's a glimmer of hope. I look at Mark, who gives me a reassuring nod. We'll get through this together. As we leave the apartment, I feel a strange sense of relief. The truth is out, and though it's not what I expected, it's a chance for a new beginning. The road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can face it head on. And this time, I won't be alone.